Good morning. Our topic for tonight is the thing about digital TV reception. I've received a lot of inquiries about how to solve this problem, and I decided to create an episode to answer once and for all how to address this problem. So the title of the live stream is How to Select the Best Receiving Antenna for You. It's not always that is the network that has to address this problem. Each household, each receiver has to do its part to ensure faithful reception. Okay, so you can solve the problem. You cannot just rely on the network to provide you with the highest power just to provide you with enough signal to satisfy your personal needs. So you can do something about it. So I call this a simplified guide. Okay, I'd like to thank my sponsors first. Number one, Ryu Ramen. So one of the best Japanese restaurants that you can find. They have their branch in Nicanor Garcia, Makati. So please do check them out. Really nice, and you get the best value for your money when you try the foods that they offer. Next one is Naughty Cafe, the fastest growing milk tea franchise in the country now. So I'm sure they've added two more branches. I have yet to update the poster, but yeah, please do check their Facebook page for updates. They might have a branch nearby, and I guarantee you that their price is way lower than the other milk tea cafes that you've been, and the taste is even better. Next is Pan Pacific Airlines, flying style. You may not have heard of Pan Pacific, but they do offer flights to Korea and very soon, in the near future, probably in Japan. So you get an affordable uh, means of air transport, great value for your money, great service. So do look forward for flight announcements from Pan Pacific Airlines. Okay, so the bone of contention. What are the factors that needs to be considered in the installation of a receiving antenna? Okay. Number one, you should know the polarization of the transmitting antenna. So how the polarization of a particular broadcaster is selected, or the orientation of their antenna. Of course, this kind of information is considered highly technical for common people, but for us engineers, it's pretty normal. However, this kind of information is rarely available. So you have to be resourceful to determine what is the polarization used by the broadcaster. So there are only two types: vertical polarization and horizontal polarization. So if you combine both, they will call it circular polarization or elliptical polarization. Now, traditionally, broadcasters have always been horizontally polarized. So the way you orient your antenna in the old days, which is like this, that's horizontal polarization. Now, if you rotate it a little bit and the elements are vertical, then that's called vertical polarization. So to give you an example, if you're using TV Plus, and people call it the magnetic antenna. So if you put it into a metallic surface, the orientation of the antenna is like this. So that is vertical polarization. So you can assume that the design of the ABS-C band transmission from the beginning is vertical polarization, because for you to get the best signal, the transmitting antenna polarization and the receiving antenna polarization should be the same. So if the transmitting antenna is vertical polarization and your receiving antenna is oriented in the horizontal polarization, in theory, that would be the weakest combination. Means you get the least amount of signal from the transmitting antenna. So that's one tip. Now, GMA has released their For the Box recently, and it comes with their own magnetic antenna, which is vertical. Okay, there's a problem here. GMA is using elliptical polarization, which means around maybe 70% of the energy is for horizontal polarization and 30% is vertical. So if it's me, I'm going to make a recommendation. Your receiving antenna, if you prefer to get the maximum signal of GMA, go for horizontal polarization because their vertical polarization is only effective in the uh, areas near the tower. So let's say when I say near, maybe in the area of maybe 20 to 30 kilometer radius. Okay. Next one is find a way to measure the signal level at your location to determine the proper antenna and how to install it. Okay, so you need the test instrument. Now, if you don't have the test instrument, you can do visual inspection. So when you um, try to receive the signal, you observe if you get stable reception or if it freezes from time to time or the signal disappears, which means you are already at the boundary of the acceptable signal level to establish perfect reception. So if that is the case, then you can augment. Okay, what are the reasons why would that happen? Maybe number one, your antenna is not pointed towards the direction of the transmission. Okay, so you need to know where the signal is originating. Number two, your polarization. Make sure you have the proper polarization. You cannot go wrong with horizontal polarization. Most broadcasters are anyway in horizontal polarization. Number three, your antenna performance reception antenna. If you're using the stock antenna that comes together with the box you bought, uh, it, its performance is not sufficient to provide enough signal for stable reception. In that case, you need to replace it. Now, when you replace that antenna, you need to know what type of antenna you need to use. And that's what we're going to discuss. Next is antennas are meant to be placed outside on the roof on an unobstructed location. That is the purpose of the antenna. You don't hide the antenna. If you use yung sinasabing indoor antenna or a rabbit antenna inside your house, it essentially gives you the weakest possible signal because imagine the signal needs to penetrate the walls of your house if it's made of wood, and worse if it's concrete, then the signal needs to find a substantial opening, an area, a certain size for the signal to enter and get to your antenna. So those are the problem. Next is the height of the antenna. The rule is the higher the antenna position outside of your house, then the higher probability of getting the signal. And the standard ITU height is 10 meters or 30 feet with respect to ground. Okay, that's the standard. Do not argue with me because it's a standard. So we just have to follow the standard. And then lastly would be knowing the directivity or gain of your antenna. So if you use the magnetic antenna, it's considered as an omnidirectional antenna and it has relatively no gain. So which means your reception is based on how the propagation of a particular station is designed from the beginning. So if you are in the fringe area, which means medyo malayo ka na doon sa transmitter site, and you have intermittent reception. Sometimes you get reception, sometimes it freezes, and sometimes it disappears. That's a characterization of a fringe area. If you have a zero gain, then that's how reception will occur on your site. Now, if you buy an antenna with a certain amount of gain, that problem can be solved. That's the beauty of it. You can solve the problem on your own. Okay, so this is NCR. Okay, so we know that most transmitters are located in Quezon City. Some of them are in Antipolo. But to put it in the proper perspective, I marked it as the black dot in the middle of the map. So wherever you are, which is represented by the red dots that I placed, make sure that you point your antenna to the location of the black dot. That would provide you with the best signal reception. Okay. Next, this example is for Davao. So there's a place, uh, they call it the Cagayan, sorry, Davao de Oro area, which is on the top right on your screen. And then I have there areas in, I think it's on the other side of the sea, sa Davao, in the direction of Mati. And you have Samal Island in the middle. And then you have two dots on the lower left side going to, I guess this is Digos. Okay, so I have here an illustration. If you see it, yung antenna slanted on the horizontal, yung, or katumba, yun yung horizontal. And then yung nakatayo, that's the vertical. Okay, in this live stream, I am recommending the use of the DX antenna UA3P1 or UA3P2. This is an antenna specifically designed for Philippine conditions. DX Antenna is a Japanese company. They have long experience in designing and manufacturing antennas. And they've decided to relocate their manufacturing in the Philippines. So I'm proud to say that it's made by Filipinos, made in the Philippines. So this is better than the stock antenna of GMA, For the Box, and TV Plus, including the Baron BRL antenna. So if you look at the graph there, the blue one, it illustrates the performance of different antennas in the vertical and the horizontal polarization. And this type of antenna outperforms the Baron BRL and the TB Plus magnetic antenna. So right now it's on sale at 600 pesos for the antenna alone, and you need to pay for the shipping cost. Okay. Now this antenna is best suited for areas in the next slide that I'm going to show for the colored area. Okay, this is the study. So you see the stock antenna and the Baron BRL. We've done measurements in the vertical and the horizontal polarization. Notice that if you compare it with the vertical and horizontal polarization of the DX antenna that I just showed you, it exceeds the performance of both TD Plus and Baron BRL. So this is how engineers do it, scientific with data. Okay, so for Davao, so this is Matina Hills, and in Matina Hills, you have the transmitting towers of ABS-CBN, PTV, TP5, GMA, RPN, and BEAM. So at least we could surmise that their location uh, with respect to each other is not that far. So by orienting your antenna, there's little deviation on the orientation. Okay, so for omnidirectional antenna or zero gain, yung circles, the black circles, would be areas that would have problems of reception. Now for the colored areas, so you have the blue, which represents strongest, green would be second, yellow. The red ones represent intermittent area or the fringe area. Sometimes you get reception, sometimes you don't. Those are problematic areas. So by using the UA3P2 or 3P1, it has a 3.5 to 5.5 dB gain as shown in the image. That would really solve some of the issues. Now, when I say some of the issues, because the red ones fringe, if you add a gain from 3.5 to 5.5, that would minimize the amount of freezing or drop signal reception. Okay? But of course, there are better alternatives, better than this one. If you are well within the blue, the green, and the yellow areas, then UA3P2 would be best for you. For those areas encircled by the black lines, I recommend using the UA8 and the UA14. UA8 is the 8th element and the UA14 is the 14th element antenna. If you check the gain, they range from 8 up to 12.5 dB. Notice the change in those areas with respect to the performance earlier. Okay, I'll go back to the slide so you can see the difference. So I'll go back again. Notice those areas encircled, and then if we shift, there's more signal now, which means the transmitting station did not increase the power at all. What you did is to augment your reception by using a better antenna. And then if we go further by higher gain, those areas have transformed. Some of them can now receive digital signals. So if you are from the Davao area, you can check if your location is near or within the colored areas or part of the circles. So the key here now is you know which antenna to use to improve the quality of the signal that you're receiving. Okay, aside from the antenna, you can also add an amplifier, but make sure the amplifier has less noise. So in this discussion, we're mainly talking about the antennas that you should use. There is no one antenna that fits all requirement. Each household has a unique requirement to be satisfied. Okay, next we go to the Cebu example. Earlier in the day, I had an inquiry uh, for the antenna, and he's experiencing some problems in terms of reception because they're trying to receive signals coming from Cebu, and their location is quite far from the transmitting antenna. So I've highlighted areas here in the red dots again, and the black represents the area of transmission of the broadcasters that I personally know. So there might be other stations in the same location, but I'm pretty sure ABS-CBN, PTV, and GMA are in these areas. Okay. Now, the question earlier came from uh, a person who lives in Bais City, which is in the Negros Island. So that's located on the uh, left, bottom left portion, yung dot. So isa dyan is Dumaguete and the other one is Bais City. Okay. Now I have an image also that shows the terrain characteristic. There's no line of sight from the transmitting tower in Cebu to the other location where Bae City is. So merong natural obstruction which further reduces the ability for the signal to be received. However, because there's this Fresnel zone, some signals do end up in that area. We're not going to discuss about Fresnel regions or zones. Okay, this one at 0 dB antenna gain, this would be the coverage simulation. Uh, the assumption here is the station has a 10 kilowatt uh, digital transmitter with approximately about 8 to 10 dB of gain. So notice that parts of the Leyte Island, okay, the top one uh, will have less amount of signal, and then on the negative side, you have Dumaguete and Bae City having lesser amount of signal. Again, if you are in the colored areas, UA3P2 would be okay for you. Okay. Now, for those areas encircled in black, I wouldn't recommend the UA3P2 because you're already at the fringe. What I would recommend is for you to get either the UA8 or the UA14. Notice the change in the reception for those areas. There is a slight improvement. So this slight improvement is due to the use of the UA8. Now, if we use the higher gain, the UA14, this would be the result. Notice an improvement in signal reception again. Okay, so that's how you select which antenna best suits your condition. Okay, do not rely on an advertisement saying this X antenna is best for your digital reception. You need to establish the condition, and that condition would be your location with respect to the transmitting station of the broadcaster. That's how you select the antenna. Of course, if you need higher gain, there is the UA22, which is not part of our illustration today. So I tried to limit up to UA14. UA22, it would be the 22 element antenna. Here are the list of antennas that DX antenna manufactures in the Philippines. So the US10 would be the small compact indoor antenna. Okay. Then we have the US120. We have the I think UAH201. This would be the more fashionable high gain antenna. Of course, when I said fashionable, it blends with the architecture of your house when you need to spend a little bit more because of the design and the enclosure. And then the UA3P1, 3P2, the UA8, and the U14. So you can have all the specifications and the performance of the antenna indicated in the specification sheet. Now, in the green area uh, bounded here, you also need to know how much wind loading your antenna can handle. So in times of typhoon, so that your antenna will not be crushed or will not be destroyed when a typhoon comes in. This kind of data is only available for professionally um, prepared antennas, those with high quality. Check the antennas that are available in the market if they have an indication of how much wind speed they can handle. Most likely they don't have those data. So by choosing DX antenna, you get the best quality possible uh, at an acceptable price. And always think of the Filipinos who manufactured it and who are employed by this company. Okay, so thank you for listening. This has been a very short live stream about antenna selection. Please do subscribe on my YouTube channel under James Rodney Santiago and check the other episodes that I had there. Uh, its purpose mainly is to provide education about digital TV transmission, and the broadcasting industry. Uh, I would really greatly appreciate if you would click subscribe and notification bell. That would inspire me to create more relevant contents for digital television. Again, this is Engineer James Rodney Santiago. Thank you and good morning.